Good morning. Welcome to the biblical explanation for the last Sunday in the liturgical year called the Solemnity of our Lord Jesus Christ, King of the universe. The reading is from the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 25, verses 31 up to 46. This reading is the parable of separating the sheep from the goats. It is suitable for this solemnity because pictures Jesus as the King in his glory. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. This parable presents Jesus as the king and a judge because one of the responsibilities of the king in the biblical times was to exercise judgment. Looking at the literal context, at the literal setting, the Gospel according to Matthew, it is the last parable of a series because after this parable in chapter 26 verse 1 we read, when Jesus had finished all these sayings, he said to his disciples, "You know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified." This parable, as well the other three preceding parables, send us back to the chapter 24, when Jesus is talking about the day of the Son of Man and insisting on the necessity to be vigilant, expecting his coming. These four parables illustrate the teaching of Jesus about being vigilant, starting with the parable of faithful and unfaithful servants at the end of the chapter 24, which in my previous explanation I indicated as more matching with the parable of the talents, sharing more common elements. While the parable of the 10 virgins with the lamps with oil, linking those lamps with oil to the saying of Jesus in chapter 5, that you are the light of the world, and your light should shine, that the people may see good works and glorify your Father, is more linked now with today's parable of the sheep and the goats, because they are separated on the basis of good works, which are here developed, illustrated. So we have a kind of parallel disposition that the first parable is linked more to the third one, while the second one to the fourth one. But on the other hand, the second and the third parables are more enigmatic, while our parable of the sheep and the goats is very detailed, realistic. The idea of separating recalls us the parable of the net at the end of the chapter 13, where is also a collection of the parables. So it will be at the end of time, the angels will come out and separate the evil from the righteous. The sheep at the right, the goats at the left. The expression translated as at the left, it is a compound word in Greek with the prefix eu meaning good and onoma meaning man. This expression literally would mean of good name, of good fame, but because of this that quite often it is difficult to achieve it is as a desire that is unfulfilled. Therefore it became also an expression of being on the wrong side, on the left side. Therefore, reading literal meaning of this expression, it could be also a reference to people who claim their good name, as the Pharisees claim to be righteous by observing detailedly the prescriptions of the law, and that there is a possibility of linking it to the Pharisees, who will see it in the explanation, because some statements echo their attitude. I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. This statement I link it on the occasion of the Solemnity of All Saints to the Beatitude, Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, because in the Beatitudes this word righteousness is to be understood as reference to Jesus himself, being hungry and thirsty of Jesus. Now the judgment is based on what is done to Jesus by doing to the other people. I was naked and you clothed me. This refers to the Sermon on the Mount in chapter 6. And why you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into oven, will he not much more clothe you, O man of little faith? In these words, Jesus warns us about self-centered anxiety, preoccupation, but as God provides for the creatures, therefore we should also imitate Him and provide for those who need our assistance. I was sick and you visited me, I was in prison and you came to me. These two aspects could be treated as one because also they are joined in the answer in verse 39. And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? Starting with the last verb translated as you came to me, which literally would mean coming towards me. It means not only coming physically from a distance, but also coming to me with all my problems, with all my anxieties. While the first verb translated as you visited me does not mean a simple visit like to say hi, to have a cup of coffee or tea, but literally it means to look for with care. And that meaning is used in other instances, like for example in the letter of James, where the true religion and pure and undefiled before God and the Father is to care for orphans and widows. Or God's care for humans as presented in the letter to Hebrews chapter 2 verse 6, which is the translation of the famous expression from the Psalm 8. What are the human beings that you are mindful for them, or mortals that you care for them? Now with a possibility of making reference again to the Pharisees, we could read the statement that I was hungry and you gave me food, I was thirsty and you gave me drink, in reference to the chapter 12 verses 1 up to 8, where there is one of the controversies between Jesus and the Pharisees which regards the day of the Sabbath. We read there, at that time Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry, and they began to pluck heads of grain and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, Look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath. He said to them, Have you not read what David did when he was hungry, and those who were with him, how he entered the house of God and ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for him to eat, nor for those who were with him, but only for the priests? And then he concludes with the statement, quoting from the prophets, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. In this story, they overinterpret simple fact of plucking the heads of grain as an activity forbidden on the Sabbath day, like to make harvest. But on the other hand, reading within lines, in order to spy Jesus and his disciples, they had to make a too long journey, which was also prohibited by the law in order to preserve the Sabbath rest. In the way how the story presents the Pharisees, there is no room for mercy in the way of interpretation of the law. Interesting is also the same story narrated by Mark that has the following statement. The Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath, means that in order of creation, firstly was created man and then was created the law in order to help the man, not to enslave the man. And Jesus in the course of his gospel teaches us to love not only those who love us, but also to love those who hate us, our enemies. He teaches us about merciful love. And that possible link to the Pharisees strengthens also the message of this parable, because we could also claim to be good Christians and list how many prescriptions, commandments we observe, how big offerings we give, but we lack mercy. In today's time, many are concerned with the fame, with the good name in face of the people, but in the eyes of God, what counts is what we do, in particular those which are discarded from the society, those who are considered as nothing, as none. We need to discover the face of Christ in them, showing our love and mercy for them. To this parable is suitable one of the greetings at the end of the Mass, "Go in peace of Christ to love and serve the Lord in others." Wishing you a nice day, fruitful reflection of this passage of the Gospel.